All right, good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining us today. My name is Andrew Werner. I'm the Vice President of Business Development at GovExec, and I'm excited to build on the themes of today's conversation with one of our underwriters, Aaron Nelthrop. Aaron is a full spectrum cyber researcher at Leidos, and Aaron brings extensive experience in cybersecurity and AI, and we're excited to hear his perspective today from the industry point of view. Aaron, so first, thanks for joining us today. Before we dive into the kind of more interesting questions, maybe you can just give us a little background on yourself and what your role is at Leidos.
Yeah, sure. So my name's Aaron Northrop. Like you said, I work in Leidos under the Cyber Accelerator, which is a kind of a new team that's been formed in Leidos in the last year. But my background, I've been in cybersecurity for like 15 years, done things from penetration testing. I actually started in Lockheed Martin of years back, but done things from penetration testing, customer networks to incident response and threat detection on a lot of our customer networks, and then even moved into security engineering and security architecture in the last few years. But now my new focus in this research role is really how do we apply and tackle these tough challenges by applying artificial intelligence, machine learning to some of these really tough challenges in the cybersecurity space.
Awesome. So in other words, you're very smart. We're lucky to have you. So as we've been discussing, there's a tremendous amount of change going on in cybersecurity right now. So I guess from your point of view, can you tell us a little bit about what brings about that change? And then what are some of the trends at Leidos that you guys have identified and things that need to be addressed in kind of the rapid change that's going on right now?
Yeah. So having worked in a security operation environment myself, there's so much data, so much complexity in this these new scale that we have in these enterprises. And in cyber, we really need to respond faster. There's an evolving threat that's getting better and better. So that's really the challenge. Is we need to kind of rethink our approach. And the old approach really isn't as effective as we see in the news. There's a lot of breaches, and we really want to think through new approaches. So what our team is doing is we're looking at how we can embed artificial intelligence, machine learning into our cyber tools, right? We're trying to use statistical learning methods to really help us correlate, interpret, maybe take actions faster, and really make more informed decisions quicker, right? So we can tackle the threats quicker, hopefully stay in front of the adversary instead of behind the adversary. So we think the best solution is really taking the human operator and augmenting them, right? Giving them automations, giving them augmentation so they can do their job faster and really be a force multiplier in their job. So they can really focus on the things that matter, the higher level task, rather than the day-to-day, diving through logs and taking a long time to get to a conclusion. So that's what our objective really is.
No, that makes total sense. And you started to touch on it there, but can you give us a little bit more insight on the AI part and how you guys are using that to solve some of these complex problems?
Yeah. So with AI, we really see a lot on the horizon here. With the amount of data that I mentioned in cybersecurity, it's a really good place to apply artificial intelligence. Really, what a good problem AI can solve is when you have good data, good high quality data that you can use to solve a problem. So we see a lot of areas in cyber being really good for this. So for threat detection, analyzing logs and network packets, appliances, memory dumps. These are all the good things that we can apply cybersecurity to. So we see AI really helping us in these areas, and really fits the profile of cyber really well to solve a lot of these challenges.
And so how are you identifying problems that can be solved by AI?
Yeah, so like I mentioned, and there's a lot of problems that we look at, and sometimes AI is not a good solution. But when there's a problem that we look at and we see that there's good high quality data, good sufficient data that we can use and we can train on, then we can really give our models the examples that we need to really make a high quality model. So we can really make predictions that our analysts can look at and have a high confidence in. So we want to be able to make sure our AI is explainable, make sure that the data going in, and when we give our predictions, we can actually show the analyst here's why we made this prediction. Here's the inputs and the features that we analyzed. And here's the reasons that we think, this is what's happening in your network. So, and a lot of those challenges, like I said, in AI that have that data behind it are really good fits for applying AI and machine learning.
That makes sense. And what are some of the tools and principles that you guys are utilizing when solving problems with AI?
The tools and principles. Well, like I said, we're looking at a couple different areas of AI, from supervised, unsupervised, and reinforcement learning. So we're looking at where we can apply the best techniques to the right problem. And like I said, we're looking at some challenges of AI with explainability that we're trying to solve. We're trying to make sure our user can trust it. We're looking at portability of our models. Sometimes these models can get so huge and complex that you can't apply them to the edge or apply them right into the network where you need to apply them. So these are some of the challenges we're facing, making sure that we can have our models apply to the right areas and give the right confidence in order for us to make the right predictions and decisions based on the data that we're seeing.
That's amazing, amazing stuff. And as we're wrapping up here, what is, to the audience, what's some advice that you can give them, and what's kind of one thing they should be focused on for when looking to AI to develop resilient practices in cybersecurity? Yeah.
So coming from my perspective, being on the offensive side, a penetration tester for a few years, and also in being a threat analyst, what I kind of see coming is I see a lot of adversaries starting to use AI themselves to kind of supercharge their attacks, to increase their capabilities. Yeah. So what I'm expecting in the next few years is more unexpected, more new attacks emerging, with attackers' use of AI. So in order to really combat that, we have to move our thinking from being a human-centric type of thinking where humans are in a loop, where we have a lot of technologies that and processes where humans are slowing them down, to more of an algorithm-centric approach, a more ML-based approach where we can automate things, we can scale things appropriately, so where we can stay ahead of the adversary, right? So we got to make sure we're going from human-centric to the algorithm-centric. That's really what our team's trying to do. And so, for example, we're also looking at not just the defensive side of cyber, but maybe some of the offensive side too. So if we can apply artificial intelligence to some of our offensive penetration testing tools, right? Now, maybe we can automate and find weaknesses better. And we can do what we're calling things like daily penetration testing, using some of our learning methods and some of our penetration testing tools. So in this way, we're trying to better simulate what adversaries are going to be doing, and hopefully assessing our own cyber posture in real time quicker, and hopefully finding and remediating those issues before the adversary. So that's what we kind of see going forward, is you got to be quicker, be more nimble, and really more algorithm centric to really stay ahead of this evolving threat that's going to be coming in cyber.
Awesome. Well, we are lucky to have you and Leidos and the team working on sophisticated problems like this. I think that is all the time we have here today. So Aaron, thank you. And thank you to Leidos again for underwriting the event. And that will now go back to the Cyber Defenders program.
All right. Thank you so much.
Take care.